Oh, crap. God. I just lost about 50 rock and roll points for that one. Alright, legends, welcome back to Here's Rodder's Reviews, the show that loves all things entertainment and shares that love with you. I am your host, Rodney Stewart. We're getting into Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey in this one. Now, this one isn't quite as strong as Excellent Adventure, but I enjoy it nonetheless. Just like Excellent Adventure, if Bogus Journey happens to be on, I'm going to have to sit down and watch it. This is a great little movie. But if you enjoyed the whole time travel element from the first movie, you're not going to get it in this one. Yes, there is a little bit of time travel setting the movie up, and there's the time game at the end of it. I didn't even mention that in the review for Excellent Adventure. There's a point within both movies where Bill and Ted are in a situation, and to get out of it, they decide to use the phone box after whatever they're supposed to be doing, like the first movie, the history report. They haven't got time to do something, so they decide to do it after the report and travel back in time to set up the stuff that they need in the present moment to get out of whatever situation they're in. And there is an ending to Bogus Journey that does the same thing. Genius, absolute genius in the way it's done in both movies. But this one here, it takes place a few years after Excellent Adventure. Bill and Ted, of course, passed their history report. They've got together with the medieval babes and try to get wild stallions going, but they're failing in a major way. And at the beginning of the movie, we see the future that Bill and Ted's music will eventually bring about. At the Bill and Ted University, where Rufus is a teacher there, and he's comes in the phone box with a lot of historical figures to teach a lesson on history, very much based around what Bill and Ted did for the history report in the first movie. So we get to see this future that Bill and Ted's music bring about. Now I say Bill and Ted, I'm talking Bill and Ted. Like Bill and Ted University, there's a statue of the two of them out the front. And yes, we'll delve into that in a little bit more detail when we get to face the music. Okay. This guy turns up with like a group of soldiers, and that's Chuck Denomalos, who we find out by the end of the movie is Rufus's ex-gym teacher. And this guy is just completely fed up with their present, the whole society based around these two fools, as he says. And his idea is he has two robot versions, two cyborgs of Bill and Ted that look exactly like them in every detail. Like they're robotic underneath, but they're flesh on top, and it literally is Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter playing the bad robot versions of themselves in this movie. His big plan is to send these two robots back in time to kill Bill and Ted before they can start Wild Stallions, and pretty much take over their lives and just destroy everything that they would have eventually built. So off they go. Rufus jumps into the Circus of Time using guitar, and it's got like a rope on it, and he chucks it across and sticks into the top of the phone box, which I have to say in this movie wasn't so fond of the design of the phone box. In the original movie it had this antenna on the top of it, which pretty much looked like an umbrella without the material. This thing popped up and came out, and this electricity came out of it. But in this one here, the phone booth is just like a machinery on top of it, and it's just like this little dome comes out of the top, and I just didn't really like that design. I preferred the original. So Rufus gets sucked into the circuits of time to go back to try and stop these robots, but we don't actually find out what happens to him to the end of the movie. Present day, Bill and Ted are auditioning Wild Stallions for the Battle of the Bands, and there's this woman here that's running the Battle of the Bands, Miss Woodrow, who gives them a shot at the Battle of the Bands because they're working for pretzels. And I think it was pretzels. God, for a movie I've seen so many times, that detail has escaped me altogether. But they're not doing great. They're in financial problems, of course. We find this out at a party that they're having for the princess's birthday, and Ted's father's there, and he's asked, they're having a back and forth about how things is going, and Ted's like, we've just entered Battle of the Bands, and when we won that there, I can totally pay you back the money, oh yeah. And Ted's father's like, well, what if you don't win? And Ted's like, I could sell more blood. So they're not in a good place. They also ask the princesses to marry them. They accept. We get to meet Colonel Oates from the military Alaskan school that Ted was almost sent to in the first movie. And yes, they had, from there we go to the evil robots landing, and to cut a long story short, too late. The robots call Bill and Ted up, and they've got the ability to mimic the voice of anyone. And after the party, Bill and Ted get a phone call, and it sounds like one of the princesses, and she breaks up with the two of them over the phone, but we discover that this is the two evil robot versions of Bill and Ted. So that's phase one, to try and destroy their relationships and whatnot. And then, of course, the two robots turn up at the apartment door, pretend to be their future selves, and they're there to help Bill and Ted get the princesses back. But in actuality, they're there to kill them, throw them into the Wild Stallions band, to drive them out to the middle of the desert. And there is Star Trek Mountain itself, and they drag Bill and Ted to the top of it and throw them off the edge, kill them stone dead. So we get to meet the Grim Reaper and the afterlife, and he's like, I was going to jump ahead there. They decide they need to get away from him. They need to get back. They need to find a way back to help the princesses and whatnot. So they actually wedgie death and make a run for it. Classic comedy. They head back to San Dimas, and they try to get help from Ted's father, but they can't make contact. They're ghosts, and that maybe blew the speakers out of your phones and whatever you're watching this on. Sorry about that. It's not working, so they try to possess Ted's father and this other police sergeant. And when they're in the bodies of Ted's father and this sergeant, these two guys, they're acting like Bill and Ted, and they're trying to tell all the police officers at this meeting that, Bill and Ted's dead, you need to go and arrest these two robots from the future, and everybody thinks these guys have just gone mad. So eventually they give up, leave, and try to head to Missy's house. Now Missy, the character of Missy in both movies, the first one was, she was married to Bill's father, but she was a lot younger than him. It was a stepmother. And Bill and Ted actually remember her being in school whenever they joined high school. She was a senior, so she's only a few years older than these two guys. In the second movie, she's divorced Bill's father and she's married Ted's father, but she's into all this seance stuff with her friends, and Bill and Ted turn up as ghosts and try to give them the message that Bill and Ted's dead, you need to get help to save the princesses and whatnot. And Missy gets this spell out of a book and pretty much exercises Bill and Ted and sends both of them to hell. And there we get to meet Beelzebub himself. And the sequence in hell on its own in this movie is visually stunning, very, very well done. And they end up in their own personal hell, so you get to see the military academy. They're going to have to do press-ups for infinity. They make a run for that. They split up to try and, they think to themselves, okay, if we're not together, we'll not get it as bad. Bill's personal hell is, he walks into this room and all of a sudden he's like 10 years old again. And it's his grandmother trying to give him a kiss, and she's all old and haggard and falling apart and whatnot, and she's like licking her lips and they're pulling one for the kiss, and this little kid's screaming. Now, if memory serves, and I can't recall 100% if this is accurate, but if it is, check it up, let me know in the comments below, because if this is accurate, then my head is just full of absolutely useless information that nobody needs to know. But the grandmother that young Bill meets in hell, I do believe was actually Alex Winter himself playing the old granny. Now, I could be wrong. I will check it out after I edit this video. The professional thing for me to do would be to stop the recording, check it out, and come back and confirm it. But I don't work like that, so check it out yourselves. Let me know in the comments below. Much appreciated. Ted's version of hell is again like Bill's. He's like 10 years old and he's stolen an Easter basket from his younger brother, and he gets chased by the Easter bunny, and eventually they all end up, they run from everything, and eventually the Easter bunny, the old grandmother, and Colonel Oates himself, like they're all trying to hunt the two of them down, and they're getting chased through hell, and they realise the only way they're going to get out of this situation is to play the Grim Reaper. He said there was a challenge. You can challenge me. If you won, I'll take you back to the real world, and if not, you'll stay here forever, sort of a deal. So they play him. They won straight away. Death is a sore loser, so he's like best 2 out of 3. Beat him a whole load of games, 3 out of 7. And eventually, in a game of Twister, he gives up, and he takes him. He's going to take him back to the living world, but they need help to defeat these 2 robots. So he's like, do you know someone that could help us? So he takes, actually, instead of bringing them back to life, he takes them to heaven, and they meet God, and they ask him for help, and he's like, station, and gives them a map of heaven to go and look for this alien scientist, who is these 2 little like small alien creatures, and they all come back to life together. One of the funniest sequences in this movie that kills me every time I see it is whenever they come back to life. They're lying in the sand at the bottom of the mountain that the evil robots threw them off earlier on. They wake up, the 2 little aliens are standing there waiting for them, and as they're getting up and dusting themselves off, they're like, where's Death? And you hear this scream in the distance getting louder and louder, and they look up and they see this black figure coming down. Like, you see him coming towards the camera, like the point of view straight up in the sky, and he's coming straight down towards it, and whack into the ground. Real childish humour, I love it. So they all disappear off and to go get the materials they need to build 2 good robot versions of themselves to fight the 2 evil robot versions of themselves, using this scientist to help them. So the climax of the movie is at the Battle of the Bands, and their robots easily defeat, like stupidly easily defeat, the evil robot versions of themselves. And this is when Chuck the Nomalos turns up from the future and pulls a gun on them, but they use the time game to beat him. he gets arrested and gets taken away. And they're on stage. This all takes place on the stage of Battle of the Bands, and they realise at this point that we're kind of screwed here because we don't actually know how to play any instruments. This is just after the reveal that the woman, Miss Wardrow, that gave them the shot at Battle of the Bands was actually Rufus in disguise. So that part of the movie alone doesn't really work for me in the way that it's put together, because this means that Rufus actually arrived in the past before the evil robots did, but he went into the time vortex at the same time as them. So it's, there's little things I got there kind of out of sequence if you want to play the real, everything has to be perfect game. But this is a Bill and Ted movie. Well, I can forgive those little things, apart from Face of Music, but we'll get to that in the next review. Spoilers, wasn't a huge fan of Face of Music. Did enjoy it, was a good time, but just wasn't a big fan of it. But we'll get into that whenever we're actually talking about the movie. Bill and Ted get into the phone box with the princesses. They disappear off. Like literally, the phone box disappears and reappears again. But for Bill and Ted, the Wild Stallions, the group, it has been 18 months and they have done nothing but, intensively learned how to play instruments. So they get on the stage. They introduce their two children, little Bill, little Ted, and they take up their places, and they 1, 2, 3, 4 hit the song that I am I'm blissfully under the impression that this is the moment that Wild Stallions begins to change the future. Rufus, in a moment of ecstasy and agreement with what they're doing, he's like, yes, sort of a thing. And this is where the movie closes out. We don't actually get to hear the song, we get like an intro to it, and then ZZ Top, God Give Rock and Roll to You. If I'm wrong about that, I am going to actually punch myself in the face. I do believe I'm actually going to check that up, because I'm just going to be absolutely disgusted if I made a mistake on that one. God Give Rock and Roll to You. That was Kiss. My good God, that was Kiss. What the hell's wrong with me? Where did I get ZZ Top from? That was the damn beard. That's what threw me off. Bill turns up with this epic beard after they're off learning the instruments. ZZ Top are famous for this big beard as well. That's what threw me off. I'm not going to apologise for making the mistake, but that's what threw me off. So please forgive me for that. But again, oh crap, God, I just lost about 50 rock and roll points for that one. This is where the movie ends off at, and you can see throughout the world everybody's getting to see this performance. And because Chuck, when he turned up, Chuck and the Nomelos, he used this device to turn the cameras of the Battle of the Bands to a worldwide stage, so that people could see him defeating Bill and Ted. So now that he's captured and they're on stage playing the song, the entire planet is at home watching this on television. And the credits begin to roll, and we start to see all these news reports and clippings and whatnot of the Wild Stallions rise to fame, and then they're kind of like a breakup, and then they're reuniting, and world peace and air guitar eliminates smog, all this random stuff. And the last thing we see is Wild Stallions taking off to play Mars. So that's where the movie finished off, and for me, spoilers for the next review, this is where the franchise ended. Wasn't 100% on board for Face of Music, but we'll get to that in the next review. So, just like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, if you haven't seen this one, give it a little watch sometime, but just be aware, it if I did say Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, there's not really much middle ground there. If you'll either love it or hate it. So if you hate Excellent Adventure, you're not going to dig this one whatsoever, because I think everybody that's a fan of Bill and Ted will pretty much agree with that sentiment. The first one is an absolutely classic movie, and we literally got Bogus Journey simply because of the success of Excellent Adventure. But for me, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey is a very enjoyable experience, and again, like Excellent Adventure, this has got a banging soundtrack, absolutely fantastic. As far as the soundtracks go, I would hit Bogus Journey a lot quicker and a lot harder than I would hit Excellent Adventure. That's just my vibe, that type of music. It's just brilliant. So go check it out, and again, in the comments below, let me know if the old grandmother was indeed Alex Winter, because I'm almost convinced that it was. So guys, thank you for watching the video. If you happen to be listening to this on the podcast version, you're absolute legends. And if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, turn on that bell notification to know when videos go up. Take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you in the next one.